He invited his ex to ridicule her at his billionaire wedding, but she showed up with triplets and destroyed his entire world. Before we get into the story, remember to subscribe to my channel for more thrilling stories. The 3 pregnancy tests lined up on the marble bathroom counter blurred through Sofia Moreno's tears of pure joy. After 2 years of marriage and 18 months of hoping, she was finally carrying Victor's children. Triplets, 3 miracles growing inside her. At 28, Sofia still couldn't believe this was her life. Married to Victor Blackwood, the brilliant CEO whose family name opened every door in the city. She had planned this moment with absolute care. The penthouse terrace was transformed, string lights glowing, Victor's favorite Wagyu steaks waiting under silver domes, Dom Perignon chilling in ice. White roses formed a path to their intimate table, and tucked into an elegant gift box were 3 tiny onesies embroidered with baby, baby, baby. When they'd met at that tech summit 3 years ago, Sofia had been a struggling graphic designer. Victor was the keynote speaker, commanding, impossibly confident in his tailored suit. Their whirlwind romance had felt like a fairy tale. Michelin star restaurants, weekends at his family's Hamptons estate, and a yacht proposal that stopped her heart. Tonight, she would tell him they were becoming parents 3 times over. The private elevator chimed. Sofia smoothed down her emerald silk dress, the one Victor bought her in Paris, and hid the pregnancy tests in her clutch, wanting to see his face light up with joy. "Victor, darling," she called out, her voice trembling with excitement. "I have the most incredible news to share with you tonight." But the man who emerged wasn't the loving husband she expected. Victor's imposing frame filled the doorway, his expensive suit perfect despite the late hour. But his steel-gray eyes, usually warm, were now cold as glass. Behind him, 3 colleagues in expensive suits filed in, drinks already in hand, laughing. Why were they here? This was supposed to be their private evening. "Sofia." Victor's voice was sharp, formal. "I need you to listen very carefully." The tests felt heavy in her clutch. "Victor, what's happening?" "I prepared dinner. I have something important. This marriage is over. I'm filing for divorce. My attorney will contact you tomorrow." The room tilted. Behind Victor, his colleagues watched with barely concealed amusement. One raised his glass in a mock toast. "What did you just say?" Her voice came out as a whisper. Victor stepped closer, loosening his burgundy tie, the Hermes she'd given him for his birthday. He didn't even glance at the romantic terrace. "You heard me, Sofia. This arrangement is finished. I'm done pretending, and I'm done with you." Sofia's hands moved instinctively to her stomach, protecting the 3 lives he didn't know existed. "Victor, please. There's something you need to know. Nothing you could say matters anymore." He brushed past her, his shoulder deliberately knocking hers with calculated coldness. "I've found someone who actually belongs in my world. Someone who isn't." He paused, turning to look at her with contempt. "Someone who isn't beneath the Blackwood name." Behind him his colleague laughed, a sharp, ugly sound that cut through Sofia like broken glass. Each word was chosen to destroy. Sofia pressed her hand to her chest, struggling to breathe as her perfect world shattered into irreparable pieces. Sofia's knees buckled, and she reached for the back of the sofa to steady herself. The pregnancy tests in her clutch felt like they were burning through the fabric. 3 pieces of evidence of a future that was disintegrating before her eyes. "Victor, please," she managed, her voice breaking. "Just listen to me for one moment. I'm pregnant." Victor's laugh was sharp and cruel. He'd opened the bedroom door and spotted the gift box on their bed, the one with the 3 tiny onesies she'd so carefully wrapped. He picked it up, barely glancing at the contents before tossing it carelessly onto the floor. Did you really think a baby would trap me, Sofia? How desperate. How pathetically predictable. The words hit her like physical blows. Trap you? Victor, I love you. We've been trying for months. You said you wanted. I said what I needed to say to keep you compliant. He disappeared into the walk-in closet, emerging with a leather weekender bag. The truth is, you were always temporary. A mistake I made when I was younger and stupider. My family tried to warn me, marrying the caterer's assistant. He shook his head as if disgusted with himself. Brianna Vincent understands my world. Her family owns half the fashion district. That's the caliber of woman a Blackwood should marry. Sofia felt something crack deep inside her chest. You're already with someone else? For 6 months now. Victor's tone was casual, as if discussing a business transaction. Her father and mine have been planning a merger. The wedding is set for next fall. October, actually. Brianna insists on autumn ceremonies. Behind him, his colleagues had moved to the bar, pouring themselves expensive scotch. Her expensive scotch, the bottle she'd saved for special occasions. They were treating this like entertainment, like her devastation was the evening's main event. Victor, I'm carrying your children. 3 of them. Triplets. The words tore from her throat. You can't just. Security is on their way up. Victor cut her off without even looking at her. He was scrolling through his phone, now completely detached. They'll escort you out. Take whatever fits in one bag. My attorney will inventory everything else. And Sofia? He finally met her eyes, and the emptiness that was more terrifying than anger. If you try to claim those babies are mine, I'll bury you in legal fees you can't afford. The prenup you signed was ironclad. You leave this marriage with exactly what you brought into it, nothing. The elevator chimed again. 2 security guards in black uniforms stepped out, their expressions professionally blank. Ms. Moreno, the taller one said, his voice almost apologetic. We need you to come with us. Wait. Sofia looked around wildly at the penthouse that had been her home, the terrace where she'd planned to share her joy, the kitchen where she'd cooked countless meals, the bedroom where she'd believed she was building a life. I have nowhere to go. Victor, please. That's not my problem anymore. Victor had already turned away, accepting a glass of scotch for Marcus. Get her out of here. The guards moved toward her. Sofia grabbed her purse, with the 3 pregnancy tests still inside, and felt rough hands on her arms, guiding her toward the elevator. Behind her, she heard Victor's colleagues erupt in laughter, someone making a crude joke she couldn't quite hear through the rushing in her ears. The elevator doors closed on the only life she'd ever wanted, leaving her standing in the lobby with nothing but her purse, her emerald dress, and 3 tiny lives growing inside her that their father had just disowned without a second thought. The fluorescent lights of the women's shelter buzzed incessantly, a sound Sofia had learned to sleep through over the past 3 months. Her cot was wedged between a single mother with 2 toddlers and a teenager who couldn't have been more than 17. The room smelled of disinfectant and desperation, but it was warm and safe, which was more than Sofia had the night Victor threw her out. Her shift at Quick Stop Market started at 11 p.m. and ended at 7 a.m. 6 nights a week. The pay was minimum wage, barely enough to cover the shelter's modest fees and the prenatal vitamins the free clinic prescribed. Sofia stood behind the bulletproof glass, scanning lottery tickets and cigarettes for bleary-eyed customers, her swollen belly pressed against the counter. At 5 months pregnant with triplets, she looked ready to deliver any day. You should be home resting, Mrs. Chun, the store owner, said every night. But home was a cot in a room with 12 other women, and rest was a luxury Sofia couldn't afford. The divorce had been finalized in 6 weeks. Victor's attorney had been ruthlessly efficient. The prenup she'd signed in naive, love-drunk happiness gave her nothing. No alimony, no assets, not even the used Honda she'd driven before the marriage. Victor's legal team had made clear, if she pursued any claims about the babies, they would destroy her credibility and bury her in litigation she couldn't begin to pay for. So Sofia worked. She mopped floors, stocked shelves, and swallowed her pride with every thank you. Have a good night, she offered to customers, who looked through her like she was invisible. It happened on a Tuesday night in January, 2 months before her due date. Sofia was restocking the refrigerated section when the first contraction hit, a vicious, tearing pain that doubled her over. The second one came 3 minutes later. Mrs. Chin called 911. The ambulance ride to County General Hospital was a blur of sirens and agony. The emergency room doctor's face was grim. The babies are coming. We're going to do everything we can. Mateo arrived first at 11:47 p.m., weighing 3 pounds, 2 ounces. Lucas followed at 11:52, barely 3 pounds. Sebastian, the smallest, came at 11:58. His cries so faint the nurses rushed him immediately to the NICU. Sofia never held him. She caught only glimpses, impossibly tiny bodies covered in wires and tubes, enclosed in plastic incubators that looked like space pods. The neonatologist used words like underdeveloped lungs, feeding tubes, and uncertain prognosis. Each baby would need to stay in the NICU for at least 2 months, maybe longer. Do you have insurance? The hospital administrator asked the next morning. Sofia shook her head, tears streaming down her face. She didn't even have a home to bring them to. That night, still recovering in her hospital bed, Sofia pressed her face into the thin pillow and sobbed. For her 3 sons fighting for every breath, for the life she'd lost, for the man who'd thrown her away like garbage. But somewhere beneath the grief, something harder began to form, a resolve made of steel and desperation. Her sons were fighters. She would be one too. The triplets were finally sleeping, a miracle Sofia never took for granted. Mateo, Lucas, and Sebastian lay in their shared crib in the corner of the tiny studio apartment Sofia had managed to rent after 3 months of saving every penny. It wasn't much, a 4th-floor walk-up in a neighborhood where sirens wailed nightly, but it had a working lock and belonged to them. Sofia sat cross-legged on the threadbare carpet, the borrowed laptop glowing in the darkness. Her former college roommate, Jessica, had shipped it to her after Sofia finally swallowed her pride and reached out. "You were always the best designer in our program," Jessica had written. "Don't let that bastard take that from you too." But it had been almost 2 years since Sofia had done any design work. Her portfolio felt ancient, irrelevant. Who would hire a broke single mother working from a laptop older than her children? The answer came from an unexpected place. Maria Torres, the director of Casa de Esperanza, a nonprofit that had helped Sofia navigate WIC benefits and food assistance, mentioned they needed a new logo and some flyers for their annual fundraiser. Their budget was almost nothing, $300. To Sofia, it was everything. She worked after the boys fell asleep, usually around 9 p.m., and continued until her eyes burned and her back ached from hunching over the laptop. She poured everything into that project, her gratitude, her desperation, her need to prove she was more than the worthless woman Victor had discarded. The logo she created was simple but powerful. A house with an open door, light streaming out into darkness, transformed into a heart shape. Beneath it, the tagline she crafted, "Where hope has an address." Maria cried when Sofia presented it. "This is exactly us, exactly what we do." She shared it with her board, who shared it with their donors. Within a week, Sofia's phone, the prepaid one she bought at a pawn shop, started ringing. A domestic violence shelter needed a website redesign. A community health clinic wanted brochures in English and Spanish. A youth mentorship program needed their social media presence updated. Each job paid modestly, but Sofia's rates were fair and her work was exceptional. She had something many expensive agencies lacked. She understood struggle intimately, and it showed in every design she created for organizations serving people like her. 3 months after that first logo, Sofia had earned enough to buy her own laptop, a refurbished MacBook that felt like pure luxury. She registered her business officially, Moreno Digital Solutions. The name felt bold, aspirational, almost ridiculous given that her office was a corner of a studio apartment and her team was just her, working while her son slept. But when she held Mateo, Lucas, and Sebastian in the morning light, watching their perfect faces as they gurgled and reached for her, Sofia felt something she hadn't felt since that terrible night. Hope. She was building something. Slowly, painfully, one small client at a time. But she was building something that was entirely hers, something Victor's lawyers couldn't touch, something that would give her sons the life they deserved. The email sat in Sofia's inbox for 3 days before she convinced herself it wasn't spam. TechRise Innovations, a venture-backed startup in the financial district, wanted to discuss a complete brand overhaul. Their marketing director had seen Sofia's work for Casa de Esperanza at a nonprofit conference and been deeply impressed by the emotional intelligence of the design. Sofia read that line at least 20 times, her heart hammering against her ribs. The meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. on a Thursday. Sofia dropped the boys, now energetic 3-year-olds, at the subsidized daycare they attended 3 days a week, then took 2 buses to reach the gleaming glass tower where TechRise occupied the 14th floor. She wore the one professional outfit she owned, a black blazer from Goodwill and gray slacks. She'd hemmed herself. Her portfolio was on a flash drive in her pocket, each project meticulously documented. The marketing director, Amanda Chin, was younger than Sofia expected, maybe 30, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She pulled up Sofia's work on a massive monitor. The Casa de Esperanza logo, a website for a youth literacy program, branding for a women's business collective. This is raw, authentic storytelling, Amanda said, zooming in on a campaign Sofia had created for a food bank. Our previous agency gave us sterile corporate garbage. We need something that makes people feel. The contract was for $45,000, more money than Sofia had earned in total over the past 3 years. The timeline was aggressive. 6 weeks for complete brand identity, website, and marketing materials. I'll need help, Sofia heard herself say. I can't deliver this quality alone in that time frame. Amanda didn't hesitate. Bill us for subcontractors. We care about the result, not how you get there. Sofia hired James Okafor 2 weeks later. He was a Nigerian immigrant she'd met in a freelancer Facebook group, a brilliant designer working night shifts at FedEx to support his family while building his portfolio. His first day was in Sofia's apartment, now a 2-bedroom in a slightly better neighborhood, with the triplets playing with blocks in the corner while they worked. "This is your office?" James asked, not unkindly, looking at the folding table and second-hand monitors. "For now," Sofia said, "but not forever." They delivered the TechRise project 4 days early. Amanda called it transformational work and referred them to 2 other startups. By month 3, Sofia had enough steady income to rent actual office space, a modest suite above a dry cleaner. But it had a door with Moreno Digital Solutions printed on it. James became her first official employee. Then came Priya, a copywriter who understood brand voice like poetry. Then Marco, a web developer who could code faster than anyone Sofia had ever met. The boys started pre-K at a decent public school. Sofia bought her first car, a used Toyota that didn't break down every month. She opened a savings account that actually accumulated money instead of draining to zero. On the 3-year anniversary of that terrible night, Sofia stood in her small office, watching her team collaborate on a campaign for a women's health startup. Matteo, Lucas, and Sebastian were in aftercare, safe and happy. She was 31 years old, a business owner, and finally, breathing without that crushing weight on her chest. Victor had tried to erase her. Instead, she'd rebuilt herself into something he could never destroy. The Forbes photographer wanted Sofia to stand in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows of her corner office, the city skyline stretching behind her like a crown. She wore a custom Armani suit in midnight blue. Her dark hair swept into an elegant chignon, diamond studs, earned not given, glinting in her ears. "Ms. Moreno, can you give us more of a smile?" the photographer asked. Sofia's smile was genuine now. It had taken years to get there, but at 38, she knew exactly who she was and what she'd built. Moreno Digital Solutions occupied 3 floors of a prestigious downtown building. What had started as late-night work on a borrowed laptop had transformed into a tech and branding empire with 200 employees, offices in 5 cities, and a client roster that included Fortune 500 companies. The Forbes article would call her the Phoenix CEO. How Sofia Moreno built a $500 million empire from nothing. They didn't know how literally true that headline was. Her office was a testament to the journey, minimalist and elegant, but with touches that grounded her. On the credenza sat 3 framed photos, Matteo, Lucas, and Sebastian at their 5th grade graduation from Ashford Academy, one of the most prestigious private schools in the state. They'd earned their places through merit scholarships Sofia had insisted they apply for, even though she could easily afford the tuition now. "Mom always says we have to earn what we want, not expect it to be given," Matteo had explained to his teacher during the interview process. The boys were 10 now, brilliant and kind in ways that made Sofia's heart ache with pride. Matteo was the natural leader, already talking about engineering. Lucas had his mother's artistic eye and spent hours sketching designs. Sebastian, the smallest at birth but the most determined, excelled at chess and mathematics. They attended their elite academy not because of their father's name. Victor didn't even know they existed, but because Sofia had built something extraordinary. Her phone buzzed. Adriana Chen, her best friend and COO, texted. "Board meeting in 10. Also, weird mail came for you. Looks like a wedding invitation." Sofia finished with the photographer and walked through her office, greeting employees by name. The culture she'd built was everything she'd never had: respect, dignity, merit over pedigree. Half her executive team were people who'd been overlooked by traditional firms. Immigrants, single parents, people who understood that success tasted sweeter when you'd fought for every inch of it. The invitation sat on her desk in an obscenely expensive envelope, the kind with gold leaf edges. Sofia recognized the return address immediately, the Blackwood family estate. Her hands were steady as she opened it. Victor Blackwood and Brianna Vincent were finally getting married, 10 years after he'd promised. The wedding would be at the Crystal Skyline Pavilion, the most exclusive venue in the city. Black tie, October 15th. Inside, a handwritten note in Victor's distinctive script. "Sofia, thought you might want to see what a real Blackwood bride looks like. Do come if you can bear it. V." Sofia read it twice, feeling nothing but a cold, clarifying rage. Adriana appeared in the doorway. "Everything okay?" Sofia looked up, her expression calm but lethal. "Clear my calendar for October 15th. and call my stylist. I need something unforgettable." Adriana closed Sofia's office door and leaned against it, her arms crossed. "Please tell me you're not seriously considering this." Sofia set the invitation down on her desk, her fingers tracing the gold embossing. Victor Blackwood, Brianna Vincent. After 10 years, he still needed to prove he'd won. "He wants to humiliate me," Sofia said quietly. "He thinks I'm still that broken 28-year-old he threw away. He has no idea who I've become." "Exactly my point." Adriana moved closer, her voice urgent. "He has no idea. You've built an empire, Sofia. You're on the cover of Forbes next month. You have 3 incredible sons and a life he couldn't even imagine. Why give him the satisfaction of showing up?" Sofia picked up one of the framed photos on her desk. The boys at their last soccer game, grass-stained and grinning. Matteo had Victor's sharp jawline. Lucas had his piercing gray eyes. Sebastian had his aristocratic nose. Anyone who'd ever seen Victor Blackwood would recognize his sons instantly. "Because he invited me to watch him marry a real Blackwood bride," Sofia said, her voice hardening. "Because he thinks I'm nothing. Because he doesn't know about Matteo, Lucas, and Sebastian." She looked up at Adriana. "Because I want him to see exactly what he threw away, and exactly what he'll never have." Adriana studied her friend's face, seeing something she recognized. The same steel that had built a company from a borrowed laptop. The same determination that had kept 3 premature babies alive through sheer force of will. "You're really doing this." "I'm really doing this." "Then we do it right." Adriana pulled out her phone. "I'm calling Isabel Laurent. If you're walking into that viper's nest, you're doing it in haute couture." Over the next 3 weeks, Sofia's plan took shape with military precision. Isabel Laurent, the celebrity stylist, whose clients included A-list actresses and political figures, was booked solid. Until she heard Sofia's story. "A woman who built a $500 million empire deserves to look like the queen she is," Isabel had said. "I'm clearing my schedule." The dress was custom Alexander Wang, a floor-length masterpiece in champagne silk that cost more than Sofia's first year of rent. It was elegant, powerful, and unmistakably expensive. Louboutin heels, a Cartier clutch she'd earned with her own hands, hair and makeup by the same team that worked New York Fashion Week. But the real statement would be the 3 handsome boys in matching Tom Ford suits, each one a living testament to Victor's cruelty. "Mom, why are we getting so dressed up?" Sebastian asked during his final fitting. Sofia knelt down, meeting her son's curious eyes, Victor's eyes. "Because sometimes, my love, you need to show people who try to make you invisible that you're impossible to ignore." Matteo, always the perceptive one, asked quietly, "Does this have something to do with our father?" Sofia had never lied to her sons about Victor. They knew he'd abandoned them, knew he'd never wanted to meet them. They'd grown up understanding that family wasn't about biology, it was about who showed up, who stayed, who loved you when it was hard. "Yes," Sofia said simply. "This has everything to do with your father. And I promise you after October 15th, we'll never think about him again." The black Tesla pulled up to the Crystal Skyline Pavilion precisely 20 minutes after the ceremony was scheduled to begin. Late enough to make an entrance. Early enough to catch the cocktail hour. Sofia checked her reflection one final time in the tinted window. The champagne silk of her Alexander Wang gown caught the late afternoon light, and her hair fell in perfect waves over one shoulder. She looked like money, old money, the kind that didn't need to announce itself. "Ready, boys?" she asked, turning to the back seat. Matteo, Lucas, and Sebastian sat in matching Tom Ford suits, charcoal gray with crisp white shirts and silk ties that coordinated with their mother's dress. They looked like they'd stepped out of a Ralph Lauren advertisement. 3 devastatingly handsome 10-year-olds with identical confident postures. "We're ready, Mom," Mateo said, his voice steady. The valet opened Sofia's door, and she stepped out onto the red carpet that led to the pavilion entrance. She could feel eyes turning toward her even before she took her first step. The Crystal Skyline Pavilion was everything Victor would choose: glass and steel and obscene wealth, perched on the top floor of the city's most exclusive hotel, with panoramic views that cost more per hour than most people earned in a month. Sofia extended her hands, and her sons flanked her, Mateo on her right, Lucas and Sebastian on her left. They moved as a unit, a family, projecting confidence that turned heads like dominoes falling. The cocktail reception was already in full swing. Women in couture gowns clustered around high-top tables, while men in tuxedos discussed mergers and market trends over champagne that cost $500 a bottle. The who's who of the city's elite all gathered to witness Victor Blackwood finally marry the right kind of woman. Sofia stepped into the space, and the effect was immediate. Conversations stuttered. Champagne glasses paused halfway to lips. Every eye in the room found her, then dropped to the 3 boys at her side, because it was impossible not to see it. The resemblance was undeniable, almost eerie in its precision. Mateo had Victor's sharp jawline and commanding presence. Lucas had those distinctive steel-gray eyes that the Blackwood family was famous for. Sebastian had the aristocratic nose and the way Victor's mouth curved. Arrogant, even childhood. "Is that?" someone whispered. "It can't be. Those boys look exactly like." Sofia moved through the crowd with her head high, her sons matching her stride. She accepted a champagne flute from a passing waiter, her hand perfectly steady. She didn't search for Victor. She didn't need to. She could feel his presence like a disturbance in the air, somewhere near the floor-to-ceiling windows. Marcus Rivera, a venture capital investor Sofia had worked with on a tech deal last year, was the first to approach. His eyes widened with recognition. "Sofia Moreno? My God, I didn't realize you were connected to the Blackwood family." "I'm not," Sofia said smoothly, her smile razor-sharp. "I was just invited to celebrate." Marcus's gaze dropped to the boys, and Sofia watched the calculation happen in real time. The dates, the resemblance, the impossible math of it all. His expression shifted from confusion to shock to something like horror. Across the room, Sofia heard a champagne glass shatter against marble floor. Victor had finally seen them. Victor crossed the room in long, aggressive strides, his face drained of all color. Behind him, Brianna Vincent, resplendent in a Vera Wang wedding gown that probably cost more than a luxury car, watched with growing confusion. The bride's champagne flute trembled in her hand as she tried to understand why her groom looked like he'd seen a ghost. "What the hell are you doing here?" Victor's voice was low, dangerous, but Sofia heard the panic underneath. "You invited me, remember?" Sofia's smile was serene. "You wanted me to see what a real Blackwood bride looks like. So here I am, with our sons." The words hung in the air like a bomb with a visible timer. Around them, the elegant buzz of conversation had died completely. Every guest within earshot had gone silent, leaning in to catch every word of the unfolding drama. "Those aren't," Victor started, but his voice failed him as he looked at the boys properly for the first time. Mateo stared back at him with unflinching gray eyes, Victor's own eyes. Lucas had his exact bone structure. Sebastian stood with the same aristocratic posture that every Blackwood was trained into from birth. Marcus Rivera had his phone out now, clearly Googling. "Jesus Christ," he muttered. "Sofia Moreno. Forbes cover next month." The Phoenix CEO built Moreno Digital Solutions from nothing. He looked up at Victor, his expression transforming from shock to disgust. You told everyone you were never married before Brianna. Vanessa Sterling, society columnist for the Tribune, materialized like a shark scenting blood. Her photographer was already snapping pictures. Sofia, in her couture gown, the three handsome boys, and Victor's stricken face creating a tableau that would dominate tomorrow's headlines. Mr. Blackwood, Vanessa's voice carried across the room. Would you care to comment on your first marriage and your sons? Brianna reached them, her face twisted with betrayal and fury. Victor, what is she talking about? What sons? Her voice rose with each word. You told me you'd never been married. You said you had no children. Brianna, let me explain. Victor reached for his bride, but she jerked away from him. Explain what? That you're a liar? Brianna's voice cracked. That our entire relationship is built on lies. Sofia stood perfectly still, letting the chaos swirl around her. She didn't need to say another word. The evidence was standing right there in matching Tom Ford suits, 3 living, breathing witnesses to Victor's cruelty. Marcus was on his phone now, speaking in rapid, urgent tones. Yes, I'm at the Blackwood wedding. You need to see this. Victor Blackwood has 3 sons he's apparently been hiding for a decade. Their mother is Sofia Moreno. Yes, that's Sofia Moreno, the tech CEO. This is going to be everywhere in an hour. He was right. Within 15 minutes, the photos were circulating on social media. Within 30, the hashtag Blackwood scandal was trending. Someone had pulled up the marriage records Victor Blackwood and Sofia Moreno married 12 years ago, divorced 10 years ago. Someone else found the birth certificates. Triplets born at County General, mother's name. Sofia Moreno, father's name. Listed as unknown. Victor's phone began ringing incessantly. His board chairman, his investors, his family attorney. Each call another nail in the coffin of his carefully constructed life. Brianna ripped off her engagement ring and threw it at Victor's chest. We're done. The wedding is canceled. My father will hear about this. She swept toward the exit, her bridesmaids scrambling after her in a rustle of expensive silk. 6 months after the wedding that never was, Sofia stood in front of the NASDAQ building in Times Square, watching her sons' faces light up as the digital ticker displayed MDS, followed by our company's opening stock price. Moreno Digital Solutions had gone public at $42 per share, valuing the company at over $700 million. Mom, you're on the big screen. Sebastian shouted, pointing to where Sofia's face appeared on the massive display, professional and proud in her navy blazer. The IPO had been oversubscribed 3 times. Investors were calling it one of the most successful tech offerings of the year. Sofia's personal stake was worth more than she could have imagined that night 10 years ago when she'd been escorted from Victor's penthouse with nothing. Victor, by contrast, had lost everything that mattered to him. The board of Blackwood Enterprises had demanded his resignation within 48 hours of the scandal. The publicity had been devastating, not just the revelation of abandoned sons, but the cold calculation of it. The prenup that left Sofia with nothing. The cruel invitation designed to humiliate. Every ugly detail had been dissected in the press. His engagement to Brianna was destroyed. Her family, protective of their fashion empire's reputation, had issued a statement distancing themselves from Mr. Blackwood's deceptions. Other social connections evaporated overnight. Nobody wanted to be associated with the man who'd thrown away his pregnant wife. The lawsuits came next. Sofia's attorney, the best family lawyer in the state, someone she could finally afford, filed for 10 years of back child support plus damages. The court had not been sympathetic to Victor's claims that he didn't know about the children. The prenup, they ruled, didn't absolve him of parental responsibility. Victor now lived in a modest two-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood he once would have sneered at, working as a consultant for mid-level firms that couldn't afford to care about his tarnished reputation. His luxury cars were sold, his country club membership revoked. The Blackwood name, once a golden ticket, had become a cautionary tale. But Sofia rarely thought about Victor anymore. Tonight, she had somewhere far more important to be. The Community Leadership Gala was held at the Grand Hotel, the same venue where she'd once catered events as a college student. Now she was the guest of honor, receiving the Humanitarian of the Year award for Moreno Digital Solutions, initiative providing free branding services to nonprofits serving underserved communities. Sofia stood at the podium in an elegant emerald gown, looking out at a ballroom full of people who'd built their success through merit and integrity. Mateo, Lucas, and Sebastian sat in the front row, 11 years old now, watching their mother with undisguised pride. 10 years ago, Sofia began, her voice steady and clear, I was told I was nothing, that I was beneath someone's world, unworthy of a place at any table that mattered. She paused, letting her gaze sweep across the room. I want every person in this room who's ever been told they're not enough to hear this. The person who tried to erase me is gone from my life. But I'm still here, stronger, freer, more myself than I've ever been. The applause was thunderous. But Sofia's eyes were on her sons, 3 brilliant, kind young men who understood that worth wasn't inherited, it was built. One choice at a time, one act of integrity at a time. She'd won, not because Victor had fallen, but because she'd risen so high that his shadow couldn't reach her anymore.
Thank you for watching all the way to the end. If you thought the story was intense, the next one is on a whole different level, wilder, intriguing, and even more addictive. Click the video on your screen right now and dive straight into it.